Hey ladies, what's up? So we're gonna go through a couple of the exercises from workout number 2 in this video. Before we even start though, I wanted to touch a little bit on bracing. So I think we've heard all sorts of different things for cueing for bracing, like suck your belly button in towards your spine, take a breath in and hold, all these different things. But I want to explain to you how to properly brace when we're lifting weights, especially under load. So if we think about our core, we should think about it like a cylinder, right? Or you can think of it like a Coke can, right? So if we have a Coke can that's full of Coke, it's really hard to crush, right? So it's really strong, okay? When the Coke can has no Coke in it, right? No liquid, you can crush it. So we want to think of our core as a nice, can of Coke that has all of its Coke in it, okay? We don't want to leak out the liquid because then our core, our cylinder isn't as strong, okay? So some cues that I like to give. Number one is to find what we, like that deep core. You're gonna find your hip bones, and I want you to drop right off onto the inside, and then I want you to press down, okay? That's where our transverse abdominis is, and that's the main muscle we're talking about, and we're talking about contracting and stabilizing your core, okay? Because it wraps around us like a corset. So I want you to find those hip bones, I want you to come on the inside, I want you to press in, and I want you to practice bracing your core, whatever way that you've been taught in the past. And I want you to see if you can feel a muscle popping up into your fingertips, because that's what you should feel. If that muscle is going away from your fingertips, then we're not doing it correctly, okay? So a way that I like to cue people to do it is to brace like someone's gonna come and punch you in the stomach, right? So if you have a little kid or something, he's gonna run up and hit you in your stomach, you're gonna brace for that punch. So when you brace, right, I'm actually bracing to fill that whole cylinder up versus bracing to suck it in, right? So I don't really want my belly button to come towards my spine because I've taken that cylinder and I've crushed it and it's not as strong anymore, okay? What I want to do instead is I want to actually think about that I'm taking this cylinder and I'm expanding it to fill it up. And you should be able to contract your core without having to rely on your breath. So you shouldn't have to think about that you have to suck in to brace the core, because we need to be able to breathe while we're nice and stable here, okay? So I want you to practice that a few times. I want you to find those hip bones, come on the inside, and then again, brace like you're gonna brace for a punch, okay? You're gonna protect your stomach. Or if I tell people sometimes if you're laying down and someone's gonna drop like a heavy ball, okay, on your stomach, you're gonna brace for the impact of that ball. So I want you to make sure you practice that a few times because that plays a huge role when we're lifting. And today we're gonna start with squats. So making sure that we're bracing properly under load is super important. The other thing that's important with squats is our breathing. Super important with any of our compound lifts, okay? So when we go to perform a squat, we always wanna make sure that we brace that core, okay? Take a big breath in, and we're gonna hold that breath until we come back up to about the top third, right? When we're finishing the squat to standing before we breathe out. We never wanna breathe out in the bottom of that squat because that's when we're under the heaviest amount of load and that's when we can get injured, okay? So think about it like if you were gonna go underwater, right? You're gonna take your breath in, you're gonna go underwater, you're gonna hold that breath till about, you're just coming out of that water and then you're gonna breathe out. So to demonstrate that for what it looks like for the squat, right? I'm gonna brace my core for that punch. I'm gonna take a big breath in. I'm gonna squat down. I'm gonna hold that breath, hold that breath, hold that breath. I'm gonna come out of that squat, and when I get about here, I'm gonna breathe out. At the top of every rep, I'm gonna rebrace, I'm gonna rebreathe, okay? So practice that without any load to start and make sure that you have that down before we load it up with anything. Okay, cool? So we're gonna start with some goblet squats. If you're in the beginner program, you're most likely gonna be doing goblet squats or dumbbell squats or literally just an air squat and practicing on the form and technique, okay? One of the biggest things that we wanna make sure, again, I talked about it in the video from workout number 1, is that knee position. So we wanna make sure that those knees are not caving inwards, right? So what I'm referring to when I'm squatting down is what we don't want, right, is that or for that to occur. So we always want that knee to kind of track over again, kind of think third, fourth toe. And how we do that, or how we control it, is with our glutes. Okay, so you'll notice in a lot of the warm-ups there's glute activation exercises, and that's just to get the glutes firing, because they are what controls what happens at this knee joint. Okay, so our glute is what controls it. So if you think about it, if you have your foot flat, I don't want your toe to lift up off the ground, or the front part of your foot, but I literally just want you to move your knee in, move your knee out. Okay, move your knee in, move your knee out. Right, my foot is not lifting up, so that motion is not coming from my foot or my ankle, it's coming from my hip or my glute to pull that knee out. Okay, so before you go to squat, you want to think about using your glutes, right, to kind of pull your knees out a little bit. I tell people, like, if you had cargo pants on or shorts and you had this cargo pocket, that's the area that we want to think about, is kind of like rotating and pulling out. Okay, again, cargo pockets, think about them rotating kind of and pulling out to the side, and you'll feel those glutes activate. We call it a corkscrew. So you're thinking about kind of driving your foot down into the ground, right? And then I'm going to corkscrew those legs out. Okay, and that's going to help control that knee position. So let's just run through a couple body weight, then we'll do goblet, then we'll do some dumbbell, and then we'll jump into barbell. So feet position, shoulder width, around there, where your feet go, okay? Doesn't matter. It's whatever's comfortable for you, for your hip position, your hip anatomy. So some people have a more narrow pelvis, right? Where the head of their femur sits in their joint is gonna play a big role on how wide or narrow their squat is, as well as where their foot position is. So there's no right or wrong position for that foot, right? We should always be working on hip mobility, but I don't want you to think that we have to have toes straight forward. That's an old school way of thought. We don't, because again, our anatomy is very different. And for women, we have that wider pelvis. So even more so, we're gonna have a little bit of variation in where our feet point, okay? So I'm finding what position is comfortable for me. Same thing with my feet, where that feels good, right? I'm gonna corkscrew my legs out, or my cargo pockets, by activating my glutes. I'm gonna tuck that rib cage down, because we don't want it to flare, right? I'm gonna take a big breath in. I'm gonna really brace that core. I'm gonna hold that breath. I'm gonna do my squat, right? Driving those knees slightly out, but never losing contact of my big toe joint, okay? I'm gonna stand back up, breathing out at that top 1/3, okay? I'm gonna show you from the side. We wanna initiate the squats with our hips driving back, okay, versus our knees coming forward. So see the difference there? Hips drive back versus knees coming forward, okay? So I'm gonna find my foot position, right? I'm gonna tuck that rib cage down. I'm gonna brace my core. I'm gonna take that big breath in. And I'm gonna initiate sitting down and back for my squat, all right? Holding my breath, not breathing out until that top 1/3, okay? The other version that I don't want you to do, or trying it out of the habit if you are doing it, is running through all those things and then initiating the squat here, right? Did you see that difference? Versus, right, sitting down and back, versus initiating with knees driving forward, okay? So think about trying to keep a little bit more of a vertical shin if we can. If you have a longer torso, if you have a longer femur, like me, right, you're going to hinge forward. You have to. Your trunk is gonna have to come forward in order to make room for your femurs, for your legs to go back, right? So think about kind of like that hinge pattern. There ain't no way that I can squat keeping an upright trunk, right? My femurs are just too long. So to counterbalance them going back, my trunk's gonna come forward. So nothing wrong with your trunk coming forward. A lot of us, it has to, right? You'll see there's lots of variations in what our squat's gonna look on depending on, right, like how long of levers we have, how long our torso is, what our hip anatomy is, okay? The biggest thing is we just wanna make sure we keep a nice, straight, stable back, low back. We don't wanna be dumping into that low back. Again, so that ribcage stays tucked. I'm gonna screw or corkscrew those legs, right? Cargo pockets are pointing out. I'm gonna brace my core, take that big breath in. I'm gonna come down, try and break about parallel or so, right? Driving back up, breathing out. If motion is limited, okay, if you have limited ankle dorsiflexion, which is this motion, right? Bring your toes up towards you. You can always put a little plate underneath your heels to kind of help take that out of it while we work on ankle dorsiflexion range of motion. The other thing is you can work on squatting to a bench, right? So if I have that bench, I'm just working on that depth. I'm gonna run through all those things. Big breath in. I'm gonna sit down and back till I touch that bench, stay nice and active, and then I'm gonna drive up. That's a really good way to learn how to initiate the squat with your hips driving down and back, okay, versus your knees. Because the difference here is I just really want to think about, like, I'm gonna sit down in a chair, right? Versus, oh gosh, where is that bench? Where's that bench? I can't find it, I can't find it, I can't find it, right? Big difference there. So work on that, okay? So the only difference when we're adding a weight is we're holding a weight. So make sure you have the mechanics down with just body weight for you ever add a weight, okay? So great to throw in some just air squats in your warm-up, cool? So for a kettlebell goblet, all right? I'm gonna hold that bell up in front of my chest. I really wanna think about squeezing it, because when I squeeze that belt together, right, I'm gonna activate my lats, okay? We really like those lats to engage. So that shoulder's gonna be in that nice packed position. Same exact thing here, right? Set up your stance, tuck that rib cage, corkscrew those legs out, big breath in, bracing that core, right? Squatting down, okay? Drive up, breathe out. The kettlebell will allow you to stay a little bit more upright because it's counterbalancing you, okay? So from the side, right? All those mechanics, squeezing it, corkscrewing, feet stay nice and flat. Weight is 75% midfoot back, 25% midfoot forward. Big breath in, right? Sitting down and back, driving those knees out, coming on up, breathing out at the top, okay? So I'd love for you to perform these in front of a mirror so you can watch that knee position, because again, we don't want that wobbling knees coming in. We want to keep them nice and tracking over that third, fourth toe, but that happens with our glutes. Cool? Okay, so as a goblet, if you don't have a kettlebell, you can do a goblet with a dumbbell. I'm just gonna hold it like this, okay? Or you can hold it like this, either way, right? Same exact movement pattern, all the same steps, just with a dumbbell, okay? If you wanna load up a little bit heavier, you have 2 dumbbells. Just gonna hold them here. They can totally rest on your shoulders. So it's a front rack position. So same exact mechanics. Right, feet are grounded. I'm gonna corkscrew those legs out. I'm gonna tuck my rib cage. Big breath in, brace my core, sitting down and back, driving up, okay? You can also hold weights down to your side and do that same exact thing, right? I don't love that one just because I have a wide stance, some big old wide hips on me, so that's not my favorite, but some people love it. Cool? All right. Let's dive into the barbell. So why barbell? It can help us load up heavier. So at some point, you're gonna be limited by how much weight that you can hold, okay? So we hope to get to a barbell. We're gonna do barbell back squat today. And something that I like, or an acronym I like to use to kind of help remind you of the steps to run through in your head before you squat is GLAG, G-L-A-G. So that's glutes, lats, abs, and grip, okay? G-L-A-G, glutes, lats, abs, grip. So run through that in your head each time during your setup before you go to squat. Because remember, your setup is your first rep, okay? It is uber important. So dial in that setup, right? So when we set up barbell height, again, we talked about yesterday, we want to be able to clear those J hooks, right? We don't have to want to lift up over the J hooks to get there, okay? But we also don't want it too low where we're like squatting out of the rack, okay? So a good way to kind of know placement is you should be able to stand over the barbell and it should kind of sit comfortably in your armpit, right? You know, maybe your arm's jacked up a little bit, but you shouldn't be like up here, right? And if you put your arm over the barbell shouldn't be down here. So it should just kind of sit kind of comfortably in that armpit, okay? And like if you work out at the same place or at home, mark it. So you know where it's at. So you're not constantly like, oh, where does my barbell go, okay? So barbell height, right? I always love to do a few reps with just the barbell, right? I'm just grooving the neuromuscular pattern of a squat. Perfectly fine. I typically do quite a few warm-up sets because I'm using it as part of my warm-up because this is my big lift for the day, right? This is my compound lift, my big mover. So when we go to get underneath that barbell, one of the most common things that I see wrong is that people have it sit way too high up on their neck and then they complain that it hurts. Yeah, I bet it fucking hurts. It shouldn't sit on your neck, okay? It should be sitting on your delts. You have this nice scapular shelf, you can feel it. There's a bone right here in your scapula, you know, it runs across. It's a great place for that barbell to sit, okay? So it's sitting kind of in the higher thoracic spine, so maybe T2, T3, kind of up here. The barbell's gonna sit across, okay, that spine of that scapula, and then it's on those rear delts versus up on your neck. I never ever want it sitting on your neck, okay? It will be uncomfortable. We don't want that. That's a high bar position, the one I just showed you. Some people love a low bar position. It's just gonna sit lower across this back, okay? So depending on where, if you prefer a high bar or a low bar, a lot of it has to do with our anatomy, which one we prefer, perfectly fine. Either high bar or low bar, but I just don't want it sitting on your neck, okay? Hand position. We want that hand position in as close as we can get it, right? But still where it's comfortable on our shoulders. And our wrists are about 45 degrees or less of extension, right? If you're in here, but you're like this and you can't grip the barbell and it hurts, let's work on shoulder mobility, okay? And we'll spread out your grip until you get enough, basically kind of external rotation of that shoulder to get in a little bit closer. The other thing we'll see is if it's too limiting with your shoulder range of motion, is your elbows will be like way up here, right? We don't want that because then the barbell is not going to sit in the right place and the barbell will kind of pitch you forward, right? So to start, if shoulder mobility isn't there, to get a nice close grip, perfectly fine to go out wide, right? We're going to work on shoulder mobility so we can get you in a little bit closer, but we want kind of less than 45 degrees here. And we just want, you know, a little bit, of course, of elbow flare is perfectly fine, but I don't want it up here. Okay, cool. All right, so let me think of the other things I want to say before I get underneath that barbell. When we go to on rack, okay, try and get in the habit of just taking 2 steps back, looking down, checking your feet if you're in the right squat position, then squatting. A lot of times I see people like take the barbell off. I don't know where they're going, but they're like cruising way back here. Why are you way back there? Then you got to cruise all the way back forward, right? 2 steps on rack. One big step. I'm gonna look down at my feet, make sure, right, if I need some little adjustments for where my feet are, if I'm in that squat position. I'm gonna run through my GLAG, glutes, lats, abs, grip, and then I'm gonna squat, right? Brace, squat. The glutes, right, the first G, glutes, that's that corkscrew. So same thing, I just have a barbell on me, but I'm going to cargo pockets, corkscrew them out to the side, get my glutes to engage, right? My lats, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take that barbell and I'm gonna pull it into my back. So I wanna become one with that barbell, right? I'm gonna take it and pull it into me, okay? Again, that's gonna protect our low back, but it's gonna make us in the barbell 1 versus 2, because we wanna be as much one with that barbell as we can, okay? A, for abs, I'm just bracing my core, right? I'm bracing for that punch. I'm not gonna breathe out in the bottom of the squat. I'm gonna hold it till that top third, okay? And then your last G, grip. I'm gonna grip that barbell as hard as I can, okay? So again, that's why we don't want it too high up here, because then you can't really grip, okay? So glutes, lats, abs, grip. Let's do it. Move this down a little bit, you can see my feet a little bit better. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna walk straight up. to that barbell. All right, get underneath it. Get on that spine, that scapula, those rear delts. My feet are directly underneath me. I'm gonna brace. I'm gonna stand up. All right, I'm gonna take one big step back, kind of check my feet, see where they're at. I'm gonna run through glutes, lats, abs, grip. So again, glutes, lats, abs, grip. Okay, when I go to re-rack, I'm gonna walk it straight in without looking. I'm gonna hit it, and I'm gonna set it down. All right, so again, we don't wanna look because the weight will follow you, right? If we're working on depth, okay, again, you just have to go to parallel. Sometimes I go a little bit deeper. You don't have to go that deep. But putting a bench or a box behind you is great. So, I'm gonna walk up to it, get underneath it, right place, brace, stand up, right? One big step, just kind of check my feet. I'm gonna run through it, glutes, lats, abs, brace, right? I'm gonna sit down in that box, and then right back up. Glutes, lats, abs, brace, grip, back up, okay? Walk it straight back in, hit it, drop it. Cool? All right, so that one's a little long, so I'm gonna make it its own video. And then we're gonna come back and go through some dumbbell bench, a row, and a curtsy, and a lunge, and maybe some other stuff. I think that's it though. Cool? All right, cheers ladies.